Well, joining us today on OLBG is a true Premier League icon, renowned for his blistering pace, relentless energy, and his clinical eye for goal. From making his mark at Manchester City to lifting silverware with Chelsea and earning 36 caps for England, Shaun Wright-Phillips has enjoyed a remarkable career at the very top of the game. Shaun, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today on OLBG. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Ella?
Yeah, really well, thank you. If you're ready, we'll get straight into these questions, and we're going to kick off by taking a look back briefly at your time at Manchester City. And we just love to know what were the highlights of your two spells at the club.
I'd say one of my highlights were my goal against Millwall at the Den. I think that would be my biggest one in the first spell because that kind of got the ball rolling for me in terms of putting my name on the score sheet a lot more. Because I remember the first season I broke through, I was just getting closer and closer, but it just wouldn't go in. And that was kind of the game after a full season of not scoring. That kind of
Mhm.
broke that duck for me. So I'd say that was like a big part of my football career back then. And the second time, sorry, when I came back, you're always told in many ways the second time's never as good.
Mm.
So to get off the mark against Sunderland and score two goals, that kind of eased that pressure. So I'd say that was another important step in my second time back at City.
Amazing. And have you got any stories that you can tell us about your time at Manchester City that you can share? Any, good, great moments behind the scenes that we perhaps wouldn't have seen?
And there's a lot of them. Some of them are not to be obviously shared because that's certain things that you keep in the dressing room between obviously old teammates. There's always been fun stories in terms of the nicknames that Joe Roll used to give, like me and my old teammate called Chris Shuker. We came through the academy at the same time. He used to call us his two little pocket rockets.
And how about looking at the current Manchester City team? How would you assess, firstly, their kind of overall performance out of 10 for this season?
Um, I would still give them an 8 or a 7. I think their biggest issue this year was, in many ways, pressing self-destruct. I think as soon as they got rid of those little mistakes that were costing them goals, you've seen that their performance and a lot of things change into the reason why they finished third. And I think there's a lot of people saying it's a really, really bad season for City. They finished, I think, 2 or 3 points behind Arsenal, got into obviously a FA Cup final. They were unlucky not to win that. So it was a bad season in terms of City's standards they set themselves. I think their standards have been so high that anything off not winning anything is a terrible season, which I understand because they all want to be winners. So I do understand that as well. But from like a fan view of it, I've been and seen a lot of the games, and they would be in control of the game for the best part of 40 minutes, for 40 minutes, 60 minutes, and a team gets one chance and it flies in the back of the net. Sometimes that football's a cruel game, and I saw that a lot happening this year, as well as all the injuries they had, just like a lot of the other clubs, but they didn't suffer as badly, I would say, in terms of performance, if you look at your Spurs and your Man Uniteds.
And what do you think was the biggest difference between the club last season and this season? If you could pinpoint, one or two things, what would you say?
Um, of course, there's been a lot of like speculation around without Rodri, they can't do this and they can't do that. But I've never ever thought it was that black and white. I think they've created as created a lot of chances in games. They haven't scored as many. I think Kevin's had a hit and miss season in terms of being fit, ready to play, the same as Phil Foden, the same as Jack. They've had a lot of injuries in that attacking line. Those guys haven't, in many ways, got up to their running speed. It's pretty much been Haaland, Josko, and that's really been the ones that have been trying to drag them through it, and that they did the best they did. Cover's been fantastic this year. So there have been players standing up, and they just needed that from a few other players in terms of scoring their goals or taking the game by the horn in many ways. But that's football. You can't expect a team to achieve what they have achieved, which is the impossible over the last 4 years, and not have a little dip somewhere along the line. They've done something that nobody saw coming. So I expected it to come last season, but it didn't. It seemed to have come this season, and this was the year for the first time they never bought anybody in the summer.
Mm.
And in many ways, this was the year they suffered from the most injuries with that small squad.
How about Pep? Do you think he's still the man at Manchester City?
Pep will always be the man. He's just a I've been lucky enough to meet him away from the game on pre-season tour, has time for everybody, lovely human being, cares about everybody. And who doesn't want a manager that has so much passion and desire to win and to make players better and then achieve outstanding goals? I wouldn't want anybody else at the helm right now.
Longer term, who could you see maybe taking over from Pep once he does leave Manchester City?
I'm actually, in terms of all the longer term, I don't think that past that. I
Hmm.
think that's always a bridge that needs to be crossed when it's crossed in many ways because we can sit here and come out with a load of names and then Pep might decide to stay. You never know what's going to happen around the corner. So I don't really think like that. I just think about why he's there. I'm going to enjoy the fact that he's there. And then when that part of it comes, then if the people that are available, then I would most probably say he might be the right person. But if I was going to pick anybody, it would be somebody that plays similar to him
Hmm.
because then the framework is all already there in many ways, like what Slot done at Liverpool. The framework's all there, and I think the club will most probably do the same thing.
And three of his assistant coaches has recently left the club. Are there any coaches in particular that you'd love to see joins Pep's staff?
That's a hard one. 'Cause I'll just name all my friends, won't I? Like I'd love to see Ashley Cole and Joleon Lescott there with him, but obviously it's not to be. I think it's just it's done. I think they all just need a freshen up in many ways. It's been a long time together, and sometimes you just need new ideas. But yeah, I would love to have Ash a part of the Blue family, the Sky Blues, to be honest with you, if he's up for it.
And how about Kevin De Bruyne? Do you think he sits amongst the all-time greats at City?
I don't think I know, to be honest with you. I
Mm.
think, especially in this generation where he's played, I don't think there's been a better midfielder that I've seen at City. The closest person to I'd say him is Yaya, and probably Yaya's the only person that could have rivaled him if he had stayed at the club long enough. But because Kevin's done it for so long, for best part of 10 years now, to me, I'd put him at the top.
Brilliant. And how about Phil Foden? What would you say to him? Like, what advice would you give him to try and get him back to his best for next season?
He's in such a strange position after winning and achieving what he achieved last year. He hasn't got to hit the ground running, as I mentioned earlier, because of like injuries, other stuff going on, and not picking up that run of form. But I think he'll be fine with Phil. Like he loves the game, so you can't turn around and say to him, "Oh, just enjoy the game a bit better," because that's him naturally anyway. So I just honestly think it's just a matter of him getting a run of games, staying injury free, and we'll all see the Phil that we see.
Brilliant. Well, let's move on now to discuss Chelsea, and we'll quickly touch on your time at Chelsea. How would you describe playing under Jose Mourinho in one sentence?